Where we're born and how we're raised has a tremendous impact on every aspect of our life. So that's why today I want to take some time to talk about culture and worldview, what this means, and how it affects our life. So first, everything we see, hear, and think is filtered through the lenses of culture and worldview. So if you imagine someone who wears glasses, everything they see is filtered through those lenses. So for different people who are wearing different types of glasses, it affects the way they see things. So in the same way, when people grow up in different cultures, it has a different way, they have a different way of viewing the things that they experience. So I want to start by looking at some of the benefits of studying culture and worldview. So first, you get to learn more about yourself, what you believe, and how what you believe is impacted by how you grew up, and how it can be different from those around you. Like learning about those who you love, maybe your spouse, your friends, your coworkers, maybe they were raised a bit differently than you, so now you can understand better where they're coming from. And third, that you can be more effective in sharing your faith with others. If you're trying to share the good news, if you're trying to share your beliefs with someone who has a different perspective on the world, you need to understand those differences so that you can clearly communicate what you've experienced and what you believe to them. And then finally, it gives you a better understanding of what we hear and what we read, because everyone has a worldview, and everyone has a bias. Everything that people share is colored by what they believe. So understanding different beliefs can help us to see through some of those biases and see more of the truth of what we're reading and what we're hearing. And just a few other things first. It's important to remember that none of these aspects of culture and worldview are inherently better or worse than the others. They're just simply different. Not better or worse, just different. And that these are also distinct from personality traits, which are unique and innate to individuals. So personality traits you're born with. That means two brothers can be completely different. One can really love to talk, the other one can be more quiet. One can be a leader, and the other can be a follower. So those things are almost that you're born with. And of course it can change as you grow up. But these culture and worldview aspects, you see them permeate throughout an entire household and an entire society, where the entire group of people are much more similar than they are different in those things. And so finally, we also see as we meet people from different cultures that we can notice that some of these aspects can go together. So in other words, if someone has one of these aspects, then we can be pretty sure that they're going to have a few other characteristics that go along with it as well. So now let's go ahead and look at, I believe there are 11 dimensions of culture and worldview which are worth noting. Now, some people will give a higher number, some will group some of these things together and have a lower number, but today we're going to talk about 11. So let's go ahead and start. So first is focus on task versus focus on people. So again, it's important to remember that these are two opposite things. So some people might be much more focused on task, some people might be much more focused on the people, but then of course, some people, most of us, are going to be somewhere in between. So it's important for us to think this through. Where am I? What are the strengths that come with that? And what are some of the things to avoid? And especially if I'm interacting with someone who's different, how's that going to impact what we're doing? So again, focus on task versus focused on people. What does this mean? Well, let's ask a question. So for you, is it more important for things to be done efficiently? Or is it more important that everyone involved is happy? So if you care more about efficiency, is it done the right way, on time, with the right cost? Then you're probably much more focused on the task. But if you care that everyone's opinion is heard, that everyone enjoys the experience, and that no one is left out, then you probably care more about the people. So again, neither is better or worse, but we just need to be aware of these things so that we can focus on the strengths going forward. Number 2 is, are you monochronic or polychronic. So what does this mean? Monochronic means that only one thing should happen at a time. While if you're polychronic, then you prefer multiple things happening at once. So there's just a simple example, is if you're working on a task at your home and a friend unexpectedly comes to your door, do you view that as a good thing or a bad thing? Do you welcome them to come into your house and to maybe even help you with the task? Or do you appreciate the distraction? Or is it a nuisance? Is it just a problem and you would prefer for them to come back later? How you answer that probably will tell you whether you're monochronic, one thing at a time, or polychronic, where you don't mind multiple things happening at the same time. The third aspect is, are you egalitarian or are you hierarchical? So what this means is that egalitarians view everyone in society as equals, while some others prefer to rank hierarchies based on education, skill, wealth, religion, age, gender, and other categories. So it's interesting to note that some of these are just the way you're born, versus some are choice, versus some are learned things that can change throughout your life. So again, if you're egalitarian, everyone is the same, everyone is equally valuable. But if you believe in hierarchies, then you think some people are more valuable to society because of certain attributes, and others are lower because they don't have those characteristics. So number 4 is individualism versus collectivism. It could easily be argued that this is the most studied and clearest difference between cultures, because some are so focused on the individuals, but some places are so focused on the collectives. So in an individualistic culture, you are expected to take care of yourself and not necessarily take care of those around you. You are free to make your own choices, including where you live, who you marry, what you do for work, and what you do for leisure, what you do during your free time that you enjoy. But in a collectivist society, it's the opposite. What's good for the group is much more important than what's good for any individual. And you are not free to make the decisions you want. You're expected to make those decisions based on what's good for the group, not what's good for yourself. So even your family, your parents, or even leaders in that culture are the ones who make those decisions about what you do with your life. So number 5 is, do you value change or do you value tradition? So let's look at a question. Do you generally want things to stay the same, or do you want things to change? So are you someone who loves things of the past, the way things were done traditionally? Or are you someone who always wants something new? The newest technology, the newest clothes, to things being different and new, is that attractive to you? Then you probably value change. Number 6 is the culture is low context or high context. So what does this mean? So low context societies are verbal and literal, where things are expected to be explained clearly and directly. While in high context societies, things are often expected to be understood without being said. So whether it's just the culture, whether it's a look, whether it's a grunt, or something else that's non-verbal, that things are expected to be understood without being said directly. Number 7 is dichotomistic versus holistic processing. So what does this mean? Dichotomists strongly believe in absolute truths and morals while eliminating as much gray area as possible. It's either right or wrong. There is no in between. So, and others take a more holistic approach by valuing an entire spectrum of possibilities and truths. Maybe I'm not right, maybe you're not right, maybe the truth is even somewhere in between, but let's look at it together, let's discuss the differences, and take a broader approach to what is right, what's wrong, and what's best going forward. So number 8 is vulnerability versus concealment. So again, a question. Are you an open book when it comes to your beliefs, your feelings, strengths, weaknesses, even your successes and failures? Or do you tend to be more guarded? Well, if you're more guarded, then you're more of a concealer. You don't want everyone to know everything about you. But if you're vulnerable, then you're an open book, and you don't mind sharing everything about yourself with everyone around you. So number 9 is there uncertainty avoidance, or is there comfort with ambiguity? Well, let's look at a question. Do you want to know who, what, when, where, and how for everything? Or are you more okay going with the flow, trusting others in most circumstances? If you're comfortable with just going with the flow, then you're comfortable with ambiguity. But if not, then you're on the other side. So number 10, do you believe in free will or determinism? So again, are you in control of your own destiny? Do your decisions, do your actions really impact the future? Or do you believe that every outcome is already predetermined, whether by God or by some other force? Number 11, the final thing we're going to look at today, is concrete versus abstract conceptualism. Well, what does that mean? Do you care more about things which can be experienced through sight, touch, taste, smell, and sound? Or do you care about more of the abstract things which really exist in the mind, such as love, hope, and beauty? So if you want the things that you can experience and touch and smell, that's the concrete. But if you're abstract, then it's the things that you more exist in your mind. So that's the 11 aspects of culture and worldview. I hope you've learned a few things, and I'd love to hear from you where you fall on some of these things. So I put together just a test just to see how you are. So I'd love for you to take a screenshot. I'm also going to put this photo in the comments section. So I'd love for you just to make a mark, on each of these 11, which one you tend to lean more towards. So just put a mark where you are for yourself. So if anyone's interested, here's myself. This is where I personally fall on each of these things. Again, nothing is better or worse. It's just different. And this is how I tend to fall on my things. So let's just go for a few quick thoughts as we close this out. This is based on the benefits that we talked about in the beginning. So just ask yourself, what strengths of yours can be highlighted and which weaknesses can be improved? How can you better interact with those who are different from you? And even for those you love, how can you connect with them? Maybe some of these basic cultural differences are the root of some of your arguments and disagreements. And then third, how can these differences impact how different people understand and practice their faith? And how can we share what we believe with others who believe things that are different from us? And finally, let's be aware of biases in what we hear and read so that we can see through some of these cultural things and get closer to the unbiased truth. So again, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think? Where do you fall on some of these things? Or if you ever have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. So please drop a comment, send me a message, let me know what you thought about this video, or if you ever have questions or prayer requests. And if you'd like to hear more about how to put your faith into practice, I hope you'll like, subscribe, and follow this page, because we have a lot more to share.